My name is Laura Keeler. I'm one of the law practice advisors at LCL Mass LoMap. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time today, this is part of our monthly webinar for busy lawyer series. We provide free and confidential services, including practice management, to legal professionals across Massachusetts. The webinar for busy lawyers are short programs that are geared on giving you practical takeaways for things that lawyers want to know. Today, our topic will be vetting technology for your law firm, which is incredibly important as we know it's part of technology competence and is something that a lot of lawyers and law firms struggle with. We are absolutely thrilled to have such esteemed guest speakers today. We have Sharon Nelson and John Simek. They are from Sensei Enterprises, which is out of Virginia, though they are nationally known and regarded highly all over the world. They specialize in IT, cyber, digital forensics. They have co-authored over 18 books that have been published by the ABA. Sharon, who is the president of Sensei, is a past Virginia State Bar president, and John, who is the vice president, has a vast number of certifications, including certified ethical hacker. I encourage you to look also for their, in addition to their ABA books, their blogs and their podcasts, including Ride the Lightning. So John and Sharon, I will turn it over to you, and I invite all attendees to put questions in the chat and we'll go over those at the end. Thank you so much and glad to have you.
There you go. Let's share this thing. Hold on here. There we are. We got sharing going on. Let's open up this window. All right, Jerry, rock and roll.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for Vetting Tech for Your Law Firm Practical Tips. And because we are not being shown today, there we are, so that you can at least see who's talking to you. And I'm going to go through process and how to select what's right for your firm. And then John is going to go through actual products and vetting them. The process varies from firm to firm, but usually process is not very good. So I'm going to take you through the process and then we'll go through the decisions. But the process is critical because lawyers are all over the place with what process they use. And often they end up pretty much dazed and confused because there are too many products out there that do various things, and some do more, some do less, some have crossovers. Vendors, of course, promise the world, and it's hard to screen out the BS. Sometimes we get hired just to screen out the BS, which is kind of a funny position to be in. So we're here to help, and if you do have questions, please do put them in the chat box. When it comes to doing your research, which is important, beware of pay-to-play listings like the ABA Legal Technology Buyer's Guide and ABA Blueprint. We're not picking on the ABA, but a lot of states have similar things. And basically, if you pay the ABA, you get your entry in there. So it's not a recommendation, really. Also, there are blogs. Rob Ambrogi's Law Sites has been around for a long time. And he does talk about, he is Massachusetts, sure. And he does talk a lot about specific products, but he's gotten more into the pay to play thing. So just beware of that at times. Attorney at Work, as far as I know, is beholden to no one. So I use that often as the source. And then, of course, CLE and conferences are very helpful. We have a Virginia State Bar Tech Show down here. I'm sure you have conferences up there. ABA Tech Show is our favorite of the national conferences. More in the way of research. I had the great honor with my friend there, Jim Calloway, in our Digital Edge podcast. It was rated one of the 8 best legal tech podcasts in the United States. So I guess we're a pretty good resource. Our friends, Tom Mile and Dennis Kennedy, are down there at the bottom. They do the Kennedy Mile Report. That's another good podcast to listen to. The ABA Legal Technology Survey Report is something that comes out annually. It's extremely expensive, hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
I think it's thousands, isn't it?
Well, I think it's like $500 per
volume or something.
Yeah, per volume. But you can use the free summaries, and there are wonderful ones available. There's a free summary on cybersecurity by Dave Rees, who we often lecture with. And then there are organizations like ILTA that will give you, they have put on conferences, but they have a lot of good materials to read as well. Practice management advisors, as we know, you are blessed with terrific practice management advisors.
Yep.
So they're a good resource because, of course, they're not vendors. They're actually advisors paid by the bar. So that's great. We also, because we are members of the ABA, we get Law Practice Magazine and Law Practice Today's e-zine. So those are good sources if you are an ABA member. We want to encourage you always, when you're going through this process, to use business grade technology. I know that those lower price tags sing a siren song to everyone, and I get that. But you get what you pay for, and I'm sure your parents probably told you that somewhere along the way. The lower prices seem attractive, but let's listen to the difference. When you get business grade, you get more security, scalability, manageability, and you get the thing that you want most, I think, which is speed of operation. And the higher quality parts that they're made with last longer. The consumer grade is less of everything, including the speed you love. It's made with lower quality parts and it will fail sooner, and it's designed to do that. So always use business grade tech in your law firm. Now, expo halls, we welcome them back after a couple of years, but we are seeing them again. So a lot of people just want to grab the goodies and giveaways and all that stuff, and that's all they do. But don't be shy. It's really a good place to ask questions and to take a test drive of a product. The vendors will spend a lot of time with you. They're obviously interested in making a sale, but if you don't want to buy just then, well, they'll follow up with you later, and that's fine because it gets you out of the booth. But I think a lot of people are very, very shy about this. So I would encourage you to be a little bit forward and just realize that that's what they're there for.
So what do you really need? Just like the movie, the right stuff. That's what you're looking for. You can go all the way from a fancy high end, all the way down to easy and simple and relatively inexpensive. But I think where you're really looking for is the sweet spot. The best bang for the buck is the way we look at it. As we go through some of these things, you'll see that you don't need all the bells and whistles necessarily all the time. And that's something that's of less expense may in fact be better for you in the long run.
So some of the technology challenges, it's still hard in law firms going through change management. And I know probably everybody on this call can certainly understand that would be true. There's a lot of resistance. The firm management tends to complain about the cost and money and the time to install, configure, and train. And we get all of that. So how do you help them make up their minds to change? Well, it's good to marshal lawyer friends who have used the particular product or service to convince managing partners that this is a good thing. You have to be prepared to make a business case. And, it's very notable that you must evolve to thrive, especially since the pandemic. So we have law firms that are growing, stable, and shrinking. But the stats show that those that are growing are innovating and improving client experiences, which are the two keys to the future of law being practiced successfully. Now, vendor websites and materials, obviously, you should be very wary of those. Their goal is to sell. They're never going to mention shortcomings or shortcomings in service and support. Sometimes you have to talk to salespeople to even get the pricing. I hate that when it's not transparent, but that's often true. And of course, you generally have to give them your email and phone information. They will relentlessly pummel you with emails and calls until you get tired of it all and block them or decline the calls. And sometimes it's not a great idea to sign up for free vendor white papers or reports. They're very clever. They have a very catchy title, 10 ways to prevent ransomware or something like that. But the truth is, they're trying to sell you by giving you information. So they'll give you some information, but not the whole kit and caboodle, because of course they want you to hire them. And once again, if they're going to give these things, these white papers away to you for free, you are again going to have to fill out a form and tell them how big your law firm is, give them again your email and phone number, and of course they will pester you after that. So references from vendors, I kind of go, yeah, okay, it's not bad. It's good to ask for references. They can be useful because amazingly enough, sometimes you'll call a reference and they'll actually tell you the truth. But remember that they are not going to knowingly refer you to customers who are unhappy. So you're being given selected resources. So maybe take what's said with a grain of salt. Now, the best resource, I think, is trusted colleagues, because they're actually using the product or service. So you can ask them, and that's a great way to do it. And a lot of times I'll see questions about that on a listserv, and that's a great way to get information too. Now, maybe a second best source beyond your colleagues might be trusted IT or cybersecurity providers. They are also good, but you also have to be wary of what they might get out of a referral. And there are times when people do get something out of the referral. So make sure you ask about that so that you know.
Yeah, they have business relationship with the provider.
Yeah. And so you're not getting a completely, it depends. Again, if you trust your IT provider, then but ask the question, do you get anything out of this? Then try before you buy seems perfectly obvious, but people don't do it. Everyone these days offers demos. So make sure you take that test drive. We now have, with the addition of Hawaii, we now have 40 states that have adopted Rule 1.1, the risk and benefits associated with technology. Now, there are 3 ways you can do that. You can know it, you can learn it, or you can get expert help. And actually what most lawyers do is all 3, which is perfectly fine. And then confidentiality, notice that you have to take reasonable efforts, and really reasonable efforts is your get out of jail free card, but you must make those efforts. So what's reasonable changes over time. Today, it probably means you must use 2-factor authentication everywhere you can, because it's almost always free, and it prevents most of the compromises. So that's number 1. Number 2 is endpoint detection and response solutions, which is very important because we are responsible now for monitoring for a data breach. And that comes from ABA Formal Opinion 483, which is only 16 pages. It is worth reading all of that. And then we have it is titled The Lawyer's Obligation After an Electronic Data Breach or Cyber Attack. And although it was published in 2018, it contains extremely valuable information, which is still very much what you would be following today.
So lawyers, you have an ethical responsibility to do things, as what Sharon was just talking about there. You have to comply with these things. You have to protect the client's confidential information, et cetera. But keep in mind that it's always cheaper in the long run to do things right the first time. And not come back later and start bolting things on or being reactive, if you will. So, use those tools to keep yourself out of trouble, whether they're tickler systems or, automated, whatever, logging information, communications with clients, et cetera. So things like that. Think of all that stuff, because you certainly don't want to get in trouble with and be subject to any sort of disciplinary action for your failure to do things. And always remember this, no matter what the heck you do, you will never, ever, ever be 100% secure.
So if a vendor says that they can make you 100% secure, run.
Yeah, it's not possible. I mean, things just change too fast, too often. The threats change, the attack vectors change. Now, you have to make your best efforts, obviously, to do those things. And I'm going to go in a little more detail about the type of stuff that Sharon was just talking about. No matter what you're doing within your technology, especially from a security perspective, and cybersecurity has really taken off and become white hot. It's on the top of everyone's mind now. You can't set it and forget it. As I mentioned, things change, the attacks change, the defenses change, the technology changes. Things that, and I'm going to go into some more details here, but technology that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago would cost you thousands and thousands of dollars is now very, very affordable. So you should be using those kinds of things. You need to be keeping up on that.
So now we're going to go straight to the vetting of some of the technology that's out there today.
So Windows 11 is out. and being used. It's a little more stringent now with hardware requirements. Now is a requirement for running what's from a security perspective, TPM, which is a trusted platform module, the 2.0 version, the later version of that. You can run Android apps on it. It's a free upgrade from previous operating systems, et cetera. The short answer, should you upgrade to Windows 11? I would say no, not unless you're required to do that, or unless you're purchasing a new piece of hardware and it comes with it, automatically. Then I wouldn't do that as well. We have a question already, Sharon. Says, as a solo practitioner of very low tech knowledge, I'm seeking a low-cost option for encryption of email attachments. Serves the use for several years and stopped offering. Is a client portal way to go, or are there other options to meet ethical obligations? You recommend client portals? We're going to, what a great segue, because we're going to talk about all those things.
Yep. Hang on, it's coming. But John, let's leave the questions to the end. Okay, we're going to address many of them probably.
Microsoft 365, a cloud-based environment, certainly a huge success. It's very, very big, especially among the solo and small firm lawyers. Very, very affordable. And certainly something that you should consider. Now, the question then becomes, what version should you use? All of the subscriptions for Microsoft 365 now include multi-factor authentication for no additional charge. It's free across all the subscription platforms. So generally, a lot of our clients they're going to go with what's the business standard version, which is $12.50 a month per user. And that does include Exchange Online. So you can get your email, as well, hosted with Microsoft. If you have your own email provider somewhere else, then you can go with the cheaper version and save some money there. But understand that Microsoft has already announced that there will be a price increase in Microsoft 365. They've already quote delayed that increase 2 times. So even though they've announced they're going to increase it,
we'll wait and
who knows when it really will increase. As a Microsoft 365 user, you want to become familiar with this. And if not, make sure that your support folks are your IT support people. And that's the Microsoft Secure Score. It's free within the Microsoft subscription environment. Basically what it is you go in and you answer questions. It knows about some of your subscription things. And then it calculates a percent score. It used to be numbers, like a video game. The higher the score, the better you were. Not like golf where it goes the other direction. So but they've since changed that to a percentage base, and they do the percentage base based upon similar industries and similar users. So how do you compare with other folks is kind of where you want to sit there. Now you want to shoot for as high a secure score as you can. Don't be discouraged when you first implement the default mechanisms, whatever. You're going to be down in the teens or the low 20s percentage wise, but you can get that number up into the high 70s, 80s, and maybe even the 90 percentile range. But again, let's set and forget it. We talked about earlier. Let's say you got up to 85% for your secure score. If you didn't do anything for 60 days, 90 days, I guarantee you come back and you look at your Microsoft 365 score, it's going to be lower.
Yeah, so you got to keep paying attention to it
as things change. Multi-factor authentication, Sharon talked about that. Using MFA blocks 99.9% of account takeover attacks. I like Sharon said earlier, I believe that it's now a requirement that you do that everywhere that you have. It doesn't matter. And even if you have a cloud-based practice management system, a lot of them support MFA or two-factor authentication for their logons, but make sure you turn that on. In Microsoft's case, it is available for free, but it's not enabled by default. So you have to turn that on. Now, when you do 2FA, you get that second code, right? That second factor. What should you choose if you have a choice doing that? The most common one is to get text messages. That's the SMS text message. That's the least secure of all of the 2FA. It's subject to various attacks, one of which is what's called SIM swapping. But even though it's the least secure of the 2FA methods, it's a heck of a lot better than not having it turned on at all. So if that's your only choice,
take it,
select it. Typically, though, a lot of the services now are going to give you 2 choices. You can do the SMS text message, but you can also use an authentication app like Duo, like Authy, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, one of those types of things, which generates a code every 30 seconds. so it changes every 30 seconds. And then when you log in, you then have to, go to your app and then type in that code. So given those two choices, if you have the choice of an authentication app or SMS text, choose the app. That's more secure. Even more secure is using push notifications to that app. So you don't get that code. When you log in, there'll be a signal that's sent to your device, and then it'll pop up on typically your phone. And then you have to just click a button that says, accept or deny, yes or no kind of thing. And then finally, the most secure is the hardware token, the YubiKey. Which is the picture that's shown here. Most systems, you're going to find are going to have the number 4, number 3 as a choice. You might run into one where they support push notifications, but it's not as common. So that kind of gives you a feel for where you ought to go with these things. Mobile phones, we get this a lot. iPhones are very popular among the legal community. But we also see Androids as well. Which one is the most secure? I wouldn't say one is more secure than the other. Android gives you more flexibility for apps and configuration, et cetera, than an iPhone does. iPhone is more restrictive, that walled garden arena, but either one is fine. And the good news is that with both of those operating systems, that when you put a lock code on the device, whether it's a PIN, password, facial recognition, whatever, it encrypts the contents. So you certainly want to make sure you have some locking mechanism. Case management, let's get to some of that question that we had before. Practice management systems, you should be considering those. These are, again, just some samples. There are many, many practice management systems that are out there. The vast majority are cloud-based. So certainly, consider those. And this is really going to help you organize your matters and all those types of things and communicate. Portals, which was the question that we had, client portals. Highly, highly recommend that you use client portals. Client portals are part of your practice management system. They're included, no additional charge. Again, these are just some samples. You can securely communicate, so you don't have to worry about that encrypted email stuff. The portal will take care of that for you. The client then has easy access to it, can gain access. Depending on how you configure it, they can gain access to the documents in their matter, their bills. I can pay their bills. I can do all that stuff. Jim Calloway, who Sharon talked about, our good friend out of PM out of Oklahoma, he calls these portals the law firm lobby. That's how people, enter into there.
And he says they're an essential part of law practice today, no matter whether you're a solo or a large firm.
It's not really funny, but when the pandemic hit, we had a lot of our clients who were using practice management systems, and they went, "Oh, how can I do these things? I'm working from home. How can I communicate with clients? How can I do whatever?" And we said, "Well, why aren't you using the client portal?" And they went, "Oh." So they had it available, but they didn't even use it.
No, they were they were using the case management, but they weren't using the client portals, which was unfortunate.
Time and billing, this may be included as part of your practice management system. Again, these are all just some samples of some that are available, out there. Time slips is losing favor. It used to be the big kahuna in the legal market, but they're completely subscription based now and really, really expensive, I will tell you. Document management. These are the two that we see the most often in practice with lawyers. WorldDocs and NetDocs. WorldDocs a little cheaper than NetDocs. NetDocs has a few more, features, etc. But WorldDocs is also cloud-based. They do have a cloud-based version, where NetDocs has always been cloud-based. Acrobat, you need some sort of a PDF piece of software, something that you can manipulate, redact, do those kinds of things. This is not the same as the free Acrobat Reader. And this is the gold standard, Acrobat DC Pro, the professional version. It has the redaction, Bates stamp, numbering. You can sign PDFs, et cetera, those capabilities. It is not available for software purchase anymore. It's subscription only. So it's $15 a month for that subscription or $180 a year. As an alternative, Cofax has Power PDF. But again, you want to make sure that you want to use the advanced version. That's the equivalent to Acrobat Pro. And as you see there, the price you can purchase that as a one-time purchase of $179. if you don't want to do that, ongoing subscription model. Another option for you, and this has become very popular over the last several years, is Foxit PDF Editor Pro. Again, the Pro version is the equivalent to the Acrobat DC Pro. They have two choices here. As you can see, you can do a one-time purchase of $199, so it's a little bit more than the Cofax, or you can do the subscription model at essentially $100 a year. Now, you should also consider automating PDF forms. So you can do engagement letters, you can do all kinds of things with them, where the client just fills his forms out, or you fill forms out, and then it automatically generates, certain documents, sort of boilerplate documents, if you will. Electronic signatures and contracts. These are the two that we see most often, the very popular ones, DocuSign and Adobe Sign.
We use DocuSign and like it very much.
It's a little bit more money than Adobe Sign, but not by a heck of a lot.
But it's less complicated. Yeah. It's easier.
So either one.
Easier to work with.
Just like the internet, I don't think video conferencing is going away. That pesky internet's going to hang around too. And it doesn't matter whether you're using Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet. The features, they keep improving. Their security is really good. But you need to have some method, I think, today, especially since we're doing more and more hybrid type work environments. And at the end of the day, the clients expect it. The clients want to be able to communicate and deal with you virtually.
And not take time off, not have to go
so
somewhere.
You need to have something in which to do. Zoom probably is the most popular and easiest one. Anytime you do any sort of communications, we should be using encrypted transmission of that data. Any of these things that are shown there, virtual private network or Citrix, LogMeIn, they all have an encrypted channel, communication channel. So that's the key. Make sure you're using that. If you need encryption software, then these are again some choices to use as add-on products. Now, the good news is from an operating system perspective, if you're a Mac user or you're a Windows user, Mac has File Vault 2 included automatically, no additional charge, but it's not turned on, so you need to turn that on. If you're a Windows user, Windows 10 Professional and Windows 11 Professional both include BitLocker, which is their encryption mechanism. Again, it's free. It's not enabled by default, so you do have to turn it on, but it's not that hard. Password manager. You need some sort of password manager, I think, today. We don't want to reuse passwords. We don't want to use the same passwords across multiple systems. And password managers are going to help you do that to maintain that uniqueness. Again, these are samples. There are many of them out there. As you see, we have a link for PC Magazine there. But just to use something like this is going to make your life a heck of a lot more secure. If you have more people in your law firm and you need to manage passwords for multiple people, they do also make enterprise versions, of password managers. This is one of our favorite recommendations for folks. Sharon talked about the requirement to monitor for a data breach. The Cisco Meraki is a combination firewall, access point, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. It scales from the solo attorney all the way up to the mega law firms. For the smaller law firms, you can buy the piece of hardware, the Meraki hardware, around $350 roughly, one-time purchase, and then you license the software on an annual basis. We usually do 3 years terms for the software, and when you do that, you'll get the software for in the $300 to $400 a year range. The nice part about the Meraki, though, is it's cloud configurable, cloud-based. And you'll need some help to configure it, frankly. Once it's configured and set up, though, you pretty much don't need to touch it. It'll watch for all the traffic. It looks at what the vulnerabilities are, where are the attack points. Cisco aggregates all of the data worldwide for all the Merakis. And if there's something that comes up or something that's discovered, an attack, in the Philippines on particular ports from IPs or, trying to exploit a particular vulnerability, Cisco will develop a fix and automatically push it out to every single other device, worldwide.
We've been using it for more than 5 years for our clients, and they love it, especially the smaller ones, because it's affordable.
Encrypted email, we had that, the question earlier about this. These are some choices for you to add on if you do need to send, a lot of encrypted email. For the solo small market, we highly recommend Proofpoint. Mimecast is a much more complex environment, very robust, but also very much more expensive.
Right. So
Now,
Proofpoint is our choice.
But if you're a Microsoft 365 user, they also have depending on the subscription plan you have, if you don't have encrypted email as part of your plan, you can add that on. And it's also a very affordable add-on, similar to what Proofpoint is. Wireless encryption, anytime that, again, I mentioned earlier that we need to have encrypted communications going on. These are the encryption standards for Wi-Fi. Do not use WEP or WPA at all. You should be using WPA2 as a minimum. That's the bottom line. Hopefully, you've upgraded your Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi 6 and where you will have WPA3 as an option. So if you have that, then a Wi-Fi 6 environment, then turn on WPA3.
And there we have it.
That was a lightning.
Yes, it was the lightning round, but we are at the end. If you have any questions, let us know.
Sharon, John, that was amazing. You condensed so much information, and thank you. I know that this is usually an hour program for you, and you gave us so much great information. I want to recap a few different things that you talked about. You talked about beware of the pay to play, about going to trusted people. I will say for those who are lucky enough to watch this program, these are two of the most trusted and ethical experts in cybersecurity right now. So we're so glad to have them. It's good to talk to your IT providers, to your colleagues. The importance of knowing it, learning it, and getting expert help, and how you can't set it and forget it. I see a lot of lawyers that will think, okay, I did something, 10 years ago, I did all the research then, I got the products, and it may not work for what is today's example. So for instance, one that I heard of recently, and John and Sharon, I invite you to talk more on this as well, Kaspersky antivirus software. It's recently been added to the US National Security Risk List because it is a Russian antivirus software. If there are lawyers watching that have a compromised antivirus software like this, that they got a while ago, they think is all set, what are some steps that you might recommend for them?
Well, we ourselves love Kaspersky.
I think they're a great product.
And
you do? Okay.
Having said that,
we are aware that Russian companies, even though they're now based outside of Russia, they're subject to too much pressure, and it's not a wise move. And
Right.
We had Kaspersky on our home machines, and we basically blew it away and went with another product. So we too finally have come to the conclusion that not only are the optics bad, but you really don't know if they've had to bow to any pressure. So
even at that though, I mean, because they are a Russian company, we don't know how much influence Russia, and they probably do have a lot, in intercepting the communications that go to their servers, et cetera. So even though the company, and I'll talk generally, not just about Kaspersky, but any company that runs data through there, their intentions may be very good and very, very good product, but they're not controlling that transport. So
that's a great point to think about, not only the value and reputation of the company, but also outside factors that may be at play. We had a question in the chat, and you've addressed some of it, but I'll tie it back to some of your other themes. A questioner had asked about communicating securely, which Sharon, you went through the process. John, you went through a lot of products. There are a number of ways to communicate securely with clients. You talked about client portals, how they're often part of case management. You also talked about encrypted messaging, both encrypting devices, such as turning on File Vault or BitLocker, and also encrypted email. Would you talk more generally about some options to expand on what you said before for a person like this who is a solo or small firm that is looking for recommendations to communicate with their clients? To highlight it, I would say case management client portals would be great, and then also using encrypted email. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on expanding for this person.
Sure. Encrypted email, we've addressed that stuff. It really depends on the kind of communications.
Do you want to talk about poor man's
I
encryption?
was just going to go there.
Well, say we've been married too long. I'm reminding him of what he's already going to say.
Yeah, it's not very PC though. It's poor person's encryption. But anyway, if you do have an occasional need to send confidential information to someone, but on a ad hoc basis, and you don't have anything in place, you can actually put that data into a Word document, a WinZip file, et cetera, or a PDF, and put a password on that file. So if you password protect a PDF document, a Word document, or Excel, or any Office document, or a WinZip file, it actually encrypts the contents. Now, so you already have, let's say you already have that product, you're already a Word user, then just put a password on it. Now, don't send the password in the same email that you send that Word document as an attachment, and make sure 1, 2, 3, 4 is not a good password to use to encrypt.
Make it a strong password. Yeah. But one of the tricks that a lot of solos particularly are using, and smaller firms, is that if they only do it on an occasional basis, at the beginning of the engagement, they establish the password, and so that carries throughout all that particular case. And that's really a pretty good system for somebody who doesn't want to pay for a product, or they only have those transmissions very infrequently. It really is something that has worked out okay, as long as you remember to do it right.
The other issue for encrypted communications, or at least secure communications, I guess would be a way to say it, is: are you talking voice messaging? Are you talking texting? Are you talking whatever? Do you have to preserve that information? Does it have to become part of the client file? Et cetera. Because your choices change then, depending on what your needs are. If it's just that you're kind of paranoid and you don't want the NSA dropping in on your conversation, et cetera, your text messages, then use Signal. Signal is a free app, and download that to your phone, get your client to use that as well, and that's encrypted end to end. And from a forensic perspective, I will tell you, it's really, really good, and there isn't a heck of a lot left on the phone afterwards.
No, we can't. We can't crack it ourselves. So if we can't crack it, we figure it's pretty safe.
But you're not going to be able to preserve it, obviously, right? If you need it as part of your client matter file. But there are other offerings that are out there that are end-to-end encrypted, that do have that ability.
That's a great point about thinking both for the encryption and security, but also if you need to preserve it. And if you do, that's another great point, as you both said, and Jim Calloway highlights as well, with the client portal. Then if you need to preserve it, you have all that data with the client right there to make it easier for discovery afterwards. So great point to think about, a lot of factors with that. I also want to have you touch more. You mentioned a lot of ways for security. You mentioned two of the most important for what is reasonable efforts for right now are multi-factor authentication. You, just to review for some people, you went over a number of different ways that can be, and you even highlighted what is increasing security, from the SMS text message to authenticator apps to the hardware tokens. And you also talked, the second reasonable point is about endpoint detection. I think that some people might have less familiarity with endpoint. They know it has something to do with antiviruses, phishing attacks, spyware, but could you go more into that? And does that tie with the recommendation of Cisco Meraki?
It's Meraki. Cisco Meraki is a network endpoint device. But yeah, I did not go into detail about EDR solutions. EDR, or endpoint detection and response. You might also see the term XDR, which is extended detection and response. Different vendors use different terminology, but basically, and it is different than an antivirus solution. It is different than your Symantec, your Trend Micro, your WebRoot, whatever. Than that, those are more signature based. They are getting smarter, but an EDR solution is specifically developed in order to look for anomalies in your environment. So it creates a baseline and it essentially sees what's normal. And if something is outside of normal, then it takes an action. It'll quarantine something, it'll kill a process, it'll delete the files, it'll whatever, there's a lot of different choices. It's driven by artificial intelligence, machine learning, heuristics. It's much, much more, than your antivirus solution is. Some of them will work with a human being at what's called a SOC, S-O-C, a Security Operations Center. So it'll send the alerts there. And so that a human being can analyze and say, is this a false positive? Is this really something bad, et cetera? Some of those actions that are taken, that are automatically taken, might go so far as to, if the threat looks like it's advancing and moving, it'll take that device automatically off the network and disconnect it.
Or if it starts seeing files being encrypted, that's
Right.
when it goes to work right away and says enough of that.
So, but they also have rollback capability. So it's really, really good for a ransomware infection. So as an example, like Sharon says, if you get a piece of malware or ransomware that comes in and it starts to send a lot of, it sees a lot of data leaving, right? The machine, it'll block that data transfer, take the machine off the network or whatever. If it starts to encrypt, it'll try to kill the process, it'll quarantine, but it has what's called rollback capability. It'll go back to a known good state in the computer.
Like 5 minutes before the attack or whatever.
And then roll it back. So the SOC, usually that's done by a human being, by a manual effort. The person that's in the Security Operations Center will look at it and say, "Ooh, yeah, this really was something bad. Did we kill the process? Yep, process is killed. Okay, let's get the user back online." And they then will initiate that rollback to bring the system back to that known good state.
Remember that the bad guys love nights and weekends, and that's why you want to have somebody, or you want to have alerts go somewhere. So we have one person always appointed to get alerts that come from anywhere, any one of our clients, and they have to determine and be there to analyze what went wrong, what needs to be done, et cetera, et cetera. So you want that full-time coverage so that there is an alert sent to someone reliably that you can trust to take care of it and be on it right away.
But I want to mention some specific products as examples of EDR. We like the Sentinel-1 product.
It's affordable.
Sentinel-1 is very affordable, even for solos. You can't purchase it yourself. You have to go through a reseller of Sentinel-1, but you should be able to get Sentinel-1 in the neighborhood of like $10 to $15 a month per machine. So that's not overly expensive. It's very affordable. There's some other ones that are very good, like Carbon Black as an example, and CrowdStrike has a product, but they tend to require like a minimum of 1,000 licenses or whatever, and their price is much higher.
Yeah, they're the big players. You stay with the known smaller players, and that's what Sentinel-1 has been very reliable for a number of years.
Yeah.
That is great. Thank you so much for going over that, both the concepts and to mention some of those products. A lot of the people who watch our webinars are busy lawyers or solo small firms. We appreciate that. We have a few more questions coming in.
Yep.
One has a question that you mentioned something early in the presentation about an automated PDF. Wondering if you can go more over it, how it works, and how it helps with security.
What I mentioned was really PDF forms. So it's from an automation perspective, think of it really like a document assembly kind of a thing. So you can do forms where you answer questions, you put things in certain fields, and then it will automatically generate documents, those kinds of things. It doesn't have anything to do with security, if you will. It's really a workflow, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And the next question is if you have an opinion about using Proton for encrypted email and VPN.
I will start off by saying, let it never be said that I did not have an opinion.
Amen to that.
No, Proton is very good. It is. It's well known. It's a good choice if that's where you want to go.
Very good.
Well, another resource is PC Magazine, and they do the top 10 of almost any kind of product you can think of. And so you can see the price and the features, and it's compared, and they'll rank them. So that's a great, you just search on whatever it is you're looking for, encryption software 2022 PC Magazine, and you're going to get right to this list that's really neutral about the features of various products. And that's very helpful to lawyers, and they're beholden to no one.
Yeah, it's a really good, it's a good way to narrow in on things, but keep in mind that it's more focused on consumer-based or individuals, if you will, small. So if you're a small firm, it's not an enterprise. They don't do enterprise stuff. So if you need a solution that needs to be centrally managed and deal with, let's say, 10 different endpoints, whatever, then you're going to need to go to other sources. SC Magazine is a really good one, as well. They do enterprise stuff. So it really depends on what your target is.
Yeah. And you said you had a lot of solo and small, so PC Magazine will
very
help,
good for that. Yep.
will help them.
Yep.
But John is right. If you're bigger, then you need to go somewhere else.
That is great to know. Thank you for mentioning those good resources. And that ties back to that, well, you can have some consumer-friendly resources like PC Magazine that you really want to use the business grade equipment, both for laptops and for devices, such as you mentioned, Microsoft 365, to have the business standard. I know that a lot of lawyers are afraid to really dip their toes much into Microsoft 365 beyond Outlook and Word. They sometimes will try OneDrive or SharePoint, but they are not really committed to using it. Do you have some thoughts on how lawyers can really start to embrace more of the 365 ecosystem, especially if they're already paying for it?
You're right. I mean, the early days of SharePoint, frankly, and OneDrive stability has improved tremendously. Frankly, it wasn't very good when it first came out. It was not reliable, et cetera. Again, I think it depends on what your target is. If you're a solo lawyer, OneDrive's fine, to store things and do whatever, and it's fairly simple to deal with. More complex environments where you need more collaboration, et cetera, SharePoint, certainly has improved as well. But SharePoint is not for the faint of heart. You're going to need some help. Frankly, I would guess that every single lawyer that I've run across needs help, unless you're, Ben Shore is not a lawyer, but unless you're a SharePoint program or whatever, you are going to need some expert help. That what Sharon talked about earlier, right? Either know it or get some help. That's going to be a time where you need to get some help.
Well, another way to get more comfortable with some of the features of Office Microsoft for Others 365 is to recognize how many videos they put out about their various functionalities and products. And so you can go to the Microsoft site and and look for an explanation of video. But most people are more comfortable with videos today, so it's kind of nice to hear a human being explain in plain English what you're trying to understand. And usually they have references to other deeper sources, but the videos are a really good place to get yourself started. They're first class.
That is a great point. Thank you on that. If people are looking for more help, with learning some of this, outsourcing it, I know that your company is an excellent one. Do you happen to have thoughts on how people might find, managed service providers or outside contractors in the Boston area, Western Mass? Do you happen to know of either any firms up in our area, or do you have thoughts on how to vet sort of going into looking for an outside IT, like a managed service provider for law firms seeking more help on an ongoing basis?
Managed service providers are the way people are going today. There's no question about that. They want somebody who's got the whole umbrella over them, and that's good. But managed service providers range from those that are reasonably priced to those that are just horrendous in what they charge, and so you have to be careful. Again, that's where I would go to colleagues and say, who are you using? Because on the solo side, they're going to be using a smaller managed service provider that charges lower rates, not the big national ones. And we actually see a lot of people who have no need for some of the payments that they're making to these managed service providers. I mean, sometimes it's really egregious, the amount of money that they charge. So be careful about what you choose. And colleagues are, they've been paying, they have something to say about the quality as well as the price. And that's the best way to find one.
And I would also, remind folks that this is 2022. We do have really good technology. The MSP does not have to be in your backyard. We are a virtual world. We have clients, believe it or not, in Massachusetts that we service from Virginia. But I get it. Some folks, they feel more comfortable in having someone that has a physical presence right there. That's fine too. But understand that, just like your expert witnesses, just like a lot of other things, they don't necessarily have to have boots on the ground right there. They can do a lot of things remotely.
A whole lot,
the
but
remote
almost
tools
everything.
are very good. A lot of things,
Almost everything these days. The
Cloud-based things,
national managed services providers, they will be in all 50 states, but there's a price to be paid for that. So that's where you have to be careful about what you want to do. So, but it is true, as John said, you can manage from anywhere, and that's why we have those giant MSPs, and then there are the smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great. Thank you so much on that. This is going perhaps a little bit beyond the scope of your topic, but related to vetting technology at large. Do you have thoughts on things that people should look for when reading the terms and service agreements before signing with a provider? And reputation is part of it, but they also want to know where their data is stored, who has control of it, downtimes, uptimes, things. Do you have particular things you would recommend lawyers look for in terms and service that might be a red flag?
You have just managed to mention a bunch of them, but I would definitely want to know where my data is stored.
First, read the darn things.
And they don't read them. They just don't read them. But I don't want any cross-border issues with my data. So I want the data in the United States where I know what the law is. Look for disclaimers of warranties. That's the worst thing about some of the big ones, is that they'll disclaim liability for anything and everything they possibly can. And so usually what they'll try to limit it to is what you paid them and no more. And if their negligence has brought down your network or allowed a vulnerability to exist that shouldn't be there, or their product didn't catch, an alert that you've been attacked, you've got maybe, a ton of money that you have to pay out to fix all that. But they're not going to be liable for it because you signed a contract that said they weren't.
The other thing I would say to look for, which I don't see, I've read a boatload of these terms and conditions, terms of service, things on there, is to look at what is going to be the vendor's responsibility as it relates to cyber. They're very silent on that. So should there be a data breach? Should there, what is their obligation? What are they going to do? Where's that liability? Are they going to, help you in any way? And I want to, at this point, give a plug for our friend of many years, Jack Newton of Clio. Mm-hmm. Clio is the only set of terms of service I have ever read that actually has provisions in there. Should there be a security incident, what are they going to do, right? How are they going to assist? Nobody else. Microsoft doesn't even have that. Apple doesn't even have that. Google doesn't. It's absent there. So I think today, especially with the focus on cybersecurity, that's going to be a critical component for a lot of these services that we contract with.
Those are great points. Thank you for raising those. I see that we are running up on time. I want to note that our next webinar for busy lawyers will be Wednesday, April 27th. We'll have guest expert Dan Siegel, who will be talking about one of the products that John mentioned today, Adobe Acrobat DC Pro, and in particular, how lawyers can redact the right way. So we have that coming up. In the meantime, I want to thank our audience. I want to thank our guest speakers. We so appreciate your time and knowledge. And John and Sharon, I'll turn it back to you if you have any closing thoughts.
I just want to say, make sure you say hi to Dan for us. We're good buddies.
He can give you a lot more details about that automated forms and PDF forms.
Absolutely. Dan is the best on that subject, and as you know,
Yeah.
has written several books on it. And he is a go-to reference for us as we are for him, and
Yep.
crossing over in different areas. So that's a delightful next guest for you.
Yes, it is. We're very lucky. We have terrific guest speakers. We're so grateful. And just a reminder too, if people have follow-up questions, also to note that Massachusetts has free confidential practice management consultations. So if you have further questions, feel free to reach out afterwards. Thank you so much, John and Sharon and all attendees. And thank you for joining us today on this webinar for busy lawyers on vetting technology. Important topic. And this was absolutely fantastic with all the information that you delivered.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.